This is FAI TV coming to you, well, kind of live from the UCD Bowl. This chat recorded with the two managers a couple of days before this SSE Airtricity League Under-19 final between Bohemians and St. Patrick's Athletic. Jamie Moore, a voice that you'll be more than familiar with on League of Ireland coverage, is actually the Under-19s manager of St. Pat's, and Gavin Teehan is the Under-19 managers of Bohemians. Gentlemen, how are you both?
Great, Oisin, yourself?
Yeah, good. Good, thanks, Oisin. Very good.
Can't complain. Jamie, first of all, how good is it just to plain and simply get to a final, given the year that has been?
That's fantastic. Like at the very start of the year, when we all came back for pre-season on the 4th or 5th of January, the aim for all the teams would have been to be in the final, which we thought would be probably the end of October, start of November time. And it's now in Christmas week, which I think is in itself quite cool and quite unique that we're playing in a final 2 days before Christmas, which is something that never really happens in the League of Ireland. And, you know, given all the doubt and the amount of times this season where we didn't think we'd get one game played, never mind get the groups done, get the elite phase done and get to a final for the players themselves. And it's about them. And you know, come 7:30 on Tuesday night when the first whistle blows, how excited both teams will be, all their, you know, friends and families and parents. And of course, us as the coaches, it's really exciting. It's where as a football person you want to be. And we all can't wait for it now.
Gavin, I know you want to win. I know all your players want to win, but just given the year that has been, how important was it to just get out and play? I'm sure it's a massive bonus that you've got to a final. I'm sure it's something you're desperate to win, but getting out to play, that was the key thing, wasn't it, this year? And I guess we appreciate that more than ever before.
Absolutely. You know, we've been affected just as everybody else has been. We're probably luckier than most in that we've trained and played a lot more football than some clubs. But yeah, one of our objectives was to try and get to a final, but this year has thrown up so many challenges. We've actually achieved so many other things that we probably didn't think we would throughout the year. So yeah, it's fantastic to be playing. Always good to play, no matter when that is, and no matter what the context. So the fact that it's a final is a bonus. But we're just delighted to be involved, and I know certainly the players are really looking forward to it.
That's a good point you've raised there, that you weren't just concerned with results, you were concerned with other things. Talk to me about those other things. What did you get to do that you wanted to get to do? What was important that you actually managed to get done?
Yeah, well, for us, I got involved with the Bohemian Under-19s only a year ago, so we would have met the players for the first time last December. So, you know, our main objective was to get to know them, get to understand what we were going to try and achieve as a group this year. None of us knew COVID was going to hit around March time, so we laid out the year in terms of what we'd hoped to achieve. We've achieved that and more. In a strange way, COVID has helped us probably get to know the players a little better, in that we've all got very used to using Zoom and doing things in a different way than maybe we had done previously. I found it very good this year that we got to know the players probably socially better than we would have done in the past, because we had a lot of downtime in the breaks and kind of forced us to think outside the box a bit and do other stuff with the guys. So we started to do, you know, social tasks and cooking challenges and gym sessions and all kinds of other stuff. So it was great in that respect, in that we probably did get a better understanding of the guys, not only as footballers, but just as people. But that was good. And so for all the bad about not playing and not training, there was some good to come out of it. And it is great, as Jamie said, just to be able to finish out the year with a game against a really good side, and we're really looking forward to it.
And we'll talk about the game itself in just a moment. But Jamie, you have got most of the badges at this stage. A lot is covered in these coaching courses, and they're really good. They go in depth. But one thing that they maybe haven't covered or didn't cover is how to handle this situation. And Gavin, I think, has raised a really good point there, that this gave coaches a chance to maybe get to know their players. And that's a really important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like I found as well, trying to keep in contact with them to let them know what was happening was very important. And, you know, with all the stuff on social media over the last 8 or 9 months, there's been so many rumors and different people, and the lads themselves talk, and, you know, not just the lads at St. Pat's, the lads at St. Pat's or Bohemians, there are a lot of them are friends away from football, and one club might hear one thing and then one club might hear another thing. So I found it very important to try and just keep in constant contact with them when we knew for sure what was happening, because there was no point in listening to rumors or possibilities, because that doesn't really help anyone. And I just thought it was important to let them and their parents and their families know, listen, this is what we know now is happening, and if that changes, we will let you know. And we've been lucky through all of it, bar the first main lockdown, we were able to continue to train in the pods with all of the COVID guidelines. And even though at times we didn't have football matches to prepare for at the end of the week, we were able to do different things in the week and even in the training sessions to make them fun and make them competitive. And, you know, as Gav said, we'd be quite similar. We were doing Zoom sessions with them in terms of trying to keep them fit. We also did a couple of FIFA competitions, some football quizzes, and, you know, even simple things like there was one day we were doing a Zoom in the very early part of the thing, and the lads were doing burpees or push-ups or something. And I'm sitting in the house looking at them all on the screen, and next of all, I see one of the lads being literally like attacked by his own dog in a nice way. The dog he was doing on the ground, and the dog was on top of him, licking him and jumping on him. And we actually had to stop the call to have a laugh at him because he couldn't get his dog to leave him alone. And all of that stuff you would never normally see because you'd only ever see them in the gym, you know, on the training pitch or at the games. And maybe if you were doing a go-karting thing at the end of the season or a golf day or whatever. So from that sense, you know, it was nice to see them away from, you know, the football pitch. And, you know, I think all the players across all the teams have just done so well to adapt to what we all learned was the new normal, and we were giving them runs to do per week and they had to hit a certain distance. And the Zoom sessions, I don't think anyone would ever want to do a burpee again after doing them for so long in their front room, but they did it. They got on with it. And when they came back to us, I'm sure Gav was the same. They were fit, they were ready to go, and they were hungry to, you know, get kicking a football with their mates again.
Yeah. And Gavin, like, this generation lost so much during lockdown. You know, people like us, we've got to do the missing in your 20s. We've got to do the college thing. We've got to do an awful lot. So even though, you know, all generations are missing out on some things, we got that time when we were late teens. This generation, unfortunately for them, for this year, they've lost out on devs. They've lost out on, you know, that first kind of couple of months in college. They've lost out on just social interaction. So how important was it to have football as that social outlet? How important was it to have that one thing that maybe gave them the feel of normality?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It was very important to have them to have something to focus on. As you said, like, they're all from families, and some of them work, some of them are in college. They all have things away from us. But football is important to these young men, as it is to most kids who play football. So it was interesting to see throughout the year that, you know, at times their motivation levels were up and down. Naturally, they were affected like everybody else in terms of when they had to stop playing or training for given periods. But to be fair, throughout the year, it didn't take them long for that motivation level to kind of spike and get back again once they got going again. And I have to say, our own group's engagement throughout the year has been incredible. And they're very good footballers, but more than that, they're very good people. And they've been a pleasure to get to know this year. And sadly, some of them will be leaving us this year and going on to hopefully bigger and better things. But I think it's a fitting end for some of them just to get an opportunity to play in a final against a very good side. And let's see where that takes them. But overall, for the year, they've been an absolute credit to themselves and to their families. It's been great to work with them.
And it is, as you say, a very important time for them, because some of them will want to move into the senior squad. Some of them will want to play senior football. Some of them maybe don't quite know what's coming. Some of them, you know, they might play football socially, but they might want to concentrate on other things. So it is a really important time and big time for them, isn't it? It's kind of a decision-making time in some ways for some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the good thing for me, I've been around football a long time. It's good to see that there are clubs out there like Bohemians, like St. Pat's, who are bringing young players through their pathway, giving them opportunities to get into the League of Ireland. And if not at those clubs, helping them to find clubs elsewhere. And some of the kids now are starting to explore other options as well. So the UK has always been talked about as an option to play, but now we're looking at players going to America and going to scholarships and doing education in Ireland better, and some of the colleges in Ireland becoming better equipped to help these kids to move on to the next level. So at the end of the day, a lot of them are still 18, 19 years of age. In relative terms, they're still quite young. You know, they've a lot to learn. And as you said, some of them will now decide that football may be just a social hobby from here on in, and they'll concentrate on their education or their working lives or whatever it is. And all we hope is that we've brought them to a point where they understand their options and they get good support from the likes of ourselves and the people around them, and that they just go on and live a decent life, you know, whether that is in football or not.
And Jamie, how important is it? And I don't want to kind of maybe go too far down the road or too deep into this topic, but how important is it that they can now look at Ireland as a viable option? It used to be a case for footballers that it was the UK or nowhere, whereas now, you know, you can get a good contract if you show well. You can play your way into a position of getting a move to England a little bit later in life when you're a bit more mature and you can handle it a bit better. I know it's not your sole focus as a coach, and I know for some of these players it may not be their sole focus, but it is an important element that they don't feel they have to go to be a successor. They don't feel that, you know, the only option is that playing to the UK.
Yeah, and I think the main thing I would say about that is they can also, if they wish, continue their education here. And that for me is very, very important that, you know, if they go to England at 16 or they stay here, that they do have an education side to their life, because football won't last forever.
Yeah.
They might get injured, something might happen, they might fall out of love with the game, they might get released in England after 3 or 4 years and come back and decide not to play. And, you know, there's mixed reviews about English clubs and the English system in terms of how good or how bad the education is there. And if lads do come home, is it actually good enough to even get them into a university here?
But even the perception, Jamie, now has changed, which is a good thing in a sense that people used to think if a player didn't go to the UK, well, obviously they weren't. Now people know that is not the case. That, you know, you can be a successful footballer staying in Ireland. And yeah, you might go to the UK or you might stay, but the option is there. And that perception has changed, which is a really important thing.
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think that's been down to the hard work of the clubs and the FAI as well, because, you know, a couple of years ago when I first started in the league in 2011 or 2012 with UCD, there was only an under-19s, and all the schoolboy clubs, myself and Gavin have been involved for years in some of the best schoolboy clubs as well, have done fantastic work, you know, with the players across the years. But I think the League of Ireland going to 17s in 2015 and then going to under 15s and then going recently to under 13s, you know, if it's done properly, it does give a 12-year-old player a real chance to be in a proper elite environment for 6 or 7 years. And then they can jump into the first team, hopefully. And then if they're doing really well and they play 2 or 3 years and they get 60 or 80 senior games under their belt before they're 20 or 21 and they get their few quid and they have a degree possibly from college and they have a proper senior CV, then they're going to the UK. And a great example this week is someone who Gavin would know well from Bohemians and Danny Grant, who is still in Maynooth and I think is planning to finish off his degree and has now gone to Huddersfield on a long-term contract to go and play in their first team. And, you know, St. Pat's have had lots of players like that as well. We've both also had players who've left at 16 and we wish them well. And some of them are doing great in the UK. And I think it's a very individual thing, but especially now as well with the whole stuff around Brexit. And it's really unclear at the moment if from next year, if young kids will be able to go at 16. And if they can't, I believe that there's a really proper alternative, training 3, 4, 5 times a week, gym sessions, video analysis, and proper good games for him to play at the weekends as well.
Well, that's a discussion for another time. But I do remember back in 2016, someone telling me you had to have a degree to get into the Dundalk team. And when you actually looked at the squad, they all had degrees. They were all incredibly well qualified. It was great to see that, you know, there was a bunch of guys who were doing great things. And obviously they qualified for the Europa League group stages that year. But they all had something to fall back on. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Gentlemen, let's talk about the game itself. Gavin, how has your team's form been on the way to the final?
For the year in general, it's been good, albeit we haven't played many competitive games. I think we've only played 7 or 8 competitive games, and we've tried as best we can to play, you know, train away and play in-house stuff where possible, you know, keeping in mind all the COVID guidelines. But so it's been a little bit stop-start, and so we played on Friday evening against Shells, a very tough competitive game against them. But prior to that, we hadn't played a competitive game for, I think it was about 10 weeks. So, you know, it was very hard to get or maintain any kind of rhythm or form coming into this. But it is what it is. You know, Pats are in the same boat. But as I said, overall for the year, the boys have been just fantastic. So I just hope they give a performance on Tuesday night, do themselves justice, and then regardless of the result, we'll be more than happy with them.
Jamie, what about St. Pat's form?
Yeah, I would say quite similar to Gavin. We've played 8 competitive games, so 6 matches in the initial group stage, which was earlier in the year in the summertime. We actually had Bohemians in our group. We played them twice in 2 really, really good games. And what I love about playing the games against Bohemians is that both teams just play to win the match. There's no, you know, in certain games where you'd be going to a team and they'd know that if they pressed you high or whatever they might do, that they'd be beaten quite heavily. Whereas for ourselves and Bows, it's, in my opinion, a 50-50 game. And both teams play football the right way, but we go to try to win the game. We beat them 4-2 away. They beat us 5-4 at home in a mad game. I think we were 2 down, 2 all, 4-2, whatever. I think we were 2 up. I'm not sure what it was. Got back to 4 all. Then Bows won it late, and they were proper, really, really good games for all the players because they're actually being tested and they're going into the 85th, 90th minute with the game on the line, which I think is so important for them. And then we had the break, and then in the elite phase, we beaten Shamrock Rovers 4-1 in a really good performance in the first game of the elite phase. And then the second lockdown happened, and our next game was on Saturday just gone, where we drew with Waterford to get through to the final again. First game in 10 weeks. And you could see that in the players that they hadn't been playing week on week. And I think every player is in the same boat. Ideally, you would have liked to have a 4 or 5 week lead in of games into a final to get match fitness, but that is not the way it is, and we're both just going to have to try and deal with that the best we can, and the players obviously will do that to their best ability on Tuesday night.
Gavin, I won't ask you the tactics for the game because Jamie is listening, but I will ask you what your advice to your players will be for this game.
For me, it's very simple. Just to treat it like any other game, as we've done all year, and just to go out and play the way that we know the players can play. You know, we like to play, as Jamie said, an attacking style of football to go and win football matches. So we just hope that they do that on Tuesday. And as I said, you know, it is under 19 football. We're trying to prepare them for the senior game and beyond, but it still is an important development stage. So the winning and the losing isn't the most important thing. I guarantee if you ask all the players, they all want to win, you know, so that's really understandable. But from a coaching point of view, if we get a level of performance out of the guys, considering all the hiccups and challenges we've had to get to this point, I'd be more than happy with them. As I said, regardless of what happens with Tuesday night, we're extremely happy with them. Where they've come from in a year has been exceptional to see that journey. But look, they're a good bunch of lads, as are the Pats guys. You know, as Jamie said, the players know each other well, and we've a lot of respect for Pats, and I just hope it's a good game.
And Jamie, I guess your team are focused, and I heard you say in the build-up to the under-17 final that you love that couple of minutes before kickoff in any game, where, you know, guys are just focused and you can kind of look into their eyes and see almost that kind of eye of the tiger. Yeah,
I must say that's one of my favorite parts about being a football manager, is that few moments before kickoff when the warm-up is done and the team talk is done, and you know, they have their music on. And Oisin, in this day and age, and I'm sure Gav will say the same, when you go into an under-19 dressing room, it's like you're going into a nightclub in Ibiza. They have the music that loud, and they're all having rows with each other over what music to play. And they're all on TikTok, I presume. Well, we have a rule that the only phone allowed in the dressing room is the music phone, and the rest of them can't have their phone. So, and of course with COVID now, I think we'll probably be split across. Each team will have 2 dressing rooms, so it'll be a little bit different. But yeah, I do love that moment when you can just sense the focus. And listen, the game itself and the final and the fixture, like for me in my career, this is my 6th season at Pats. I was with the 17s for 4 years and the 19s for 2. St. Pat's against Bows is the game and has been the game whereby the players don't need much in terms of motivation. Yes, we give them a game plan and we give them tactics and we give them set pieces, but yeah, you kind of know and you can look at them and you can just see, yeah, they're ready to go. But the other team, you know, in Bows will be the exact same, and there's no question every player on that pitch will be 100% wanting to win and committed to win. So, you know, both teams are the same. But yeah, I do love that moment when you can just go, the lads are ready, we're ready, and let's go and give it a crack. Lads, have you any question you want to ask each other? Any maybe tidbits you want to find out off each other? Well,
no, to be fair, I think we know each other pretty well. As Jamie alluded to earlier, the 2 games throughout the year were 2 crazy games, and I would imagine for a neutral, very entertaining games. Like, you know, 6 goals and 1 and 9 and another, whatever. It was crazy games. But you know, I'm just hoping, as I said earlier, for a decent game, a competitive game. I'm sure it will be. And then regardless of who wins it on Tuesday, I think both sides can look back and say they've had a decent season. So I can't drag you into a gloves are off style boxing, weigh in, pushing up on each other or anything like that, no? No, not for me.
So. Not your style. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. Gavin, Teehan of Bohemians and Jamie Moore of St. Pat's, thank you very much for joining us ahead of the SSE Airtricity League under-19 final between Bohemians and St. Pat's in the UCD Bowl. You might be watching this a wee while before kickoff. Don't forget to join us live on FAI TV via YouTube a little bit later. Kickoff is at 7:30. If you're watching this as part of the coverage to the build-up, which started at about 7 o'clock, then just hang on because kickoff is coming. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gav. Best of luck.
Thanks, Jamie. Best of luck.